Alright, now on to a case that needs a little bit more of our attention, which is the cat case, a character done with the character animation toolkit inside of 3ds Max. So what I'll do is I'll show you the idea to start with. We're going to go and create a cat character. You understand that if you have a skin mesh and all of that, it already we've covered that in the biped section. So what we're going to focus now is on just sending the bones. We don't have to use a mesh for that. So what I'll do is in the cat parent, I'll use a base human, and I'll just create the rig here. The reason why I'm using a base human is what you need to export to Motion Builder, since we're doing a character animation and Motion Builder understands character animation. You need to export something that looks like a human, that Motion Builder can understand as a character. So if I had to create one structure like this to export to Motion Builder, starting from none, so I would need to just grab nothing here. And from that, I would say create a pelvis. Would grab my pelvis. I would need a leg, a second leg, a spine. Then I would grab the spine. I would say add an arm, and also want a neck and a neck and a head. So I would add another spine, and you would adjust the structure of your rig so that it looks like this. But what you export to Motion Builder need to have that structure, which is 2 arms, 2 legs, a spine, a neck, and a head. And if you've got extra bones, you can export them as well. But that's the base structure that you need to export to Motion Builder. I used the character here, the base human, because the base human is already done and it's already named correctly. In terms of, if I grab the pelvis here, you'll see that this is a base human and then the extension is pelvis. If I grab this here, this is a rib cage, this is the head, this is the upper arm, this is the thigh, the calf, the foot. All of this has been named correctly because it was a template available from the cat presets. If I look at this one here, you'll see if I grab the pelvis, it's a hub. It starts with the hub. So I would need to rename this pelvis and then go on and say this here's the rib cage and this is the forearm or things like that. But the arm and the leg, you'll see that they already called leg 1, leg 2, and this will be the ankle. This one will be arm 1, arm 2. So it's already named in a way that makes sense. But if you want to really have a good sense out of your rig and be able to recognize the bones in Motion Builder, you will need to go and manually name the bones. And what's different with naming the cat naming is that if you grab the parent here and you say the name of the cat rig is, you call cat rig, so I'll call it here I don't know, human. So just call that human. As soon as I deselect and reselect, you'll see that the object here has been named human, but every bone in the structure has a prefix now called human. So as soon as you grab any bone, you'll see that at the top here, the prefix is called human. If I want to rename the spine, I need to go and grab this here. This is the pelvis, the spine. You see that we've got the spine name, which is spine, and then you've got the bone name here. I'm just going to say 1. And then I'm going to grab this one here, say 2. It's already named 2, 3, and 4. So if you look at this here, now we've got human spine 5 because we've named the structure like this. If we grab anything in the spine and we call that, I don't know, back, for example, as soon as you deselect and reselect, you see that all of your spine bone have been renamed back 1, back 2, back 3, back 4. So there's a naming tool inside of cat that is pretty useful. But just to mention that, I'm going to delete this now and just focus on this one to show you that's already named correctly. If I change the name of the human, I'm going to call that cat underscore. So now we have a character called cat. And if I just grab anything here, you'll see that it's cat underscore and then the name extension. When you're going to work with cat character, the naming is going to be very important because every time you change name, when you send to Motion Builder, if you don't want to do the process of characterizing every single time, when you're going to send a rig to Max, from Max to Motion Builder, if you have a naming convention where all the bones are named always the same, you're going to save a lot of time into the characterization process because it's all based on the names, and we'll see that in a few seconds. So we've got our character, the names are correct, and we know that we can export that to Motion Builder. But the thing is, before we export that to Motion Builder, we need to export in a T-pose. So if this character was set up and rigged correctly and skinned correctly, we would need to change the pose so that it fits into a T-pose. So what I suggest here is if you go to the motion panel, right now we don't have any animations. I'm going to create an absolute layer and I'm going to go in animation mode. And this first animation layer here, I'm going to call that original pose, and that's just an animation layer to preserve or to keep the original pose so that I can go back to it at any time. I'm going to create it in the available layer here, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call that T pose. So in this layer, I'm just going to grab the arm here, just going to snap to angle, and I'm just going to rotate it so that it fits correct, so 75 degrees. And I'll go with this one here with 75 degrees as well. So I've got my T-pose, and this is in this layer here. So if I don't want to go to the T-pose, I can turn it off by double-clicking on it. And when I want it, I just double-click on it, and it's there. So you're ready to export that to Motion Builder. But you don't export everything to Motion Builder. Of course, you select what you're going to export. In this case here, I'm going to select everything, Control A to select everything, but I'm not going to export those platform here, or the helpers. So if you've got helpers in your rig, you don't want to export that because Motion Builder has nothing to do with them. So you just want to export the bones, and of course the parent, the root here, that's going to be used as a reference inside of Motion Builder. So we're ready to export. I'm going to go here and say export selected as an FBX, and you know what, I'm just going to delete all of these files here. Actually, I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to rename them differently. So cat rig, that's going to be my cat 2, because I've practiced this before I recorded, so I'm going to call that cat 2 rig, and it's only the rig here that I'm going to export, and it's the bone definition, the length of the bones, and all of that. I don't have an animation, so I don't have to export the animation. If you have a skin mesh and all of that, you export the embed media so that the texture goes as well. So I'm going to say okay, same process as before. When you're going to export a cat rig, it's going to tell you unsupported controller, and that's fine. You don't have to worry about it because cat has a meta controller above the layer management system, and that meta controller is not understood by the FBX export. But that's fine because when we save the FBX, it just samples the final rotation of all the bones and it saved that final rotation. So that's fine. We're good with that, and we don't have to worry. So as you say, it's not an error. It's just a warning that the supported controller, the cat controller is not a supported controller, but that's fine. We're converting it to a regular controller. We don't have to worry about it. So say okay, we've exported it. So what I'll do now is I'll just bring Motion Builder, and actually I'm just going to file new, and don't save that. Going to go back to start from scratch. So what we want to do first is to merge in our rigs. I'm going to say merge and grab the cat 2 rig and just bring in here. I'm going to bring everything except the camera, so that's fine, and we don't have any cameras in the selection, so we're good. So what we have now is just a bone structure, and unlike the biped, when we brought in the biped, you see that in the character templates we have a 3ds Max biped, and that's actually a script that's going to look at the bone structure and try to make sense of it based on the biped structure and do the characterization process for us automatically. But in terms of cat, if you're using cat or a max bone rig, Motion Builder has no idea of what these bones correspond to. So we need to provide Motion Builder with this information. So the first thing we need to do is to grab a character. So the character, we just drop it inside of the file, and the character here is just called character. So I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call that cat _char for character. So that's going to be my characterization, and the characterization process, I'm just going to maximize the window so we can see here where it says base. We need to provide with the bone names for the character. So that's the structure here of a character. That's how Motion Builder understand the character. So what's the hips, what's the leg, what's the foot, what's the arm, and all of that. So we need to provide the bones that defines this. So the quickest way of doing this, and you'll see that it's not something that's done in a few seconds. I'm going to go into the view here, and I'm going to switch to a schematic view, and we're going to be able to see all of the bones plus the reference here. So we've got the left leg that is here, the right leg is there, we've got the spine here with the rib cage. I'm going to just move that aside so we can see when we're going to be there. We've got the left arm and the right arm. So we need to provide Motion Builder with all of these nodes. So the reference here, what we're going to do, we're going to grab the cat, the base definition here, which was the triangle on the ground. That's the reference for our rig. First you select it using the left mouse button, and then you hold the Alt button down and you drag it and you drop it here. So it's going to be the cat reference here. Then I'm going to go up here, select first, then use Alt and drag it, and I'm going to drag it into the hips here. For the leg, the left leg and right leg, you see that we've got thigh, calf, and foot. Same thing here, up leg, left leg, and foot. So we're going to grab the left leg, drop it here. Whoops, didn't drop it in the right place. Left leg here, calf, going to drop it here, and then the foot, we're going to drag it here. So the left leg is done. We're going to do the same thing for the right leg. And right leg is here. So select, drag, drop it here. Select, drag, and like I said, you have to do it bone by bone, and I'll show you how to save this work so that you don't have to do it every time that you have to do this. So the spine here, you see that in the base, the required bones, we have only one bone for the spine. So we need to grab the base of the spine, Alt, and drag it here. So we got spine 1, and we're going to worry about the other bones of the spine a bit later. And the left arm, I'm going to go back here. And you see that in our case here, same thing. We've got the collarbone, we've got upper arm, the forearm and the palm, but you only have arm, forearm, and hand. So we have only 3 bones. We're not going to worry about the shoulder bone or the collarbone for now. We're just going to drag the upper arm into the arm itself, then the forearm into the forearm, and the palm, the way that it's called in cat, into the hand here. And we'll do the same for the right arm. Grab the upper arm, drop it here. The forearm, drop it here, and the palm, drop it there. The last bone that is needed or the required for Motion Builder is the head. So we're going to grab the head here, select it, and drag it in here. So from now on, I would be able to start animating with the character because Motion Builder has enough bones to recognize what this character is all about. But you saw that we didn't use a collarbone, we didn't use all of the spine bones. If we want to get animation for those bones and refined animations for the neck and the bones and the collarbone and all of that, we need to tell Motion Builder to take those into consideration into the animation as well. So what I'll do here, I'll go into the auxiliary tree, and I'll go to the left shoulder, and I'll drag the collarbone into here. And I'll grab the collarbone, the right collarbone, and drag it as the right shoulder. So auxiliary is done. In the spine, you see that we only have one spine bone already defined. So I need to go and select spine 2, say drag, drop it here, click, select, drag, and grab spine 4, and the rib cage, and drop it here as well. So now we have a complete spine definition. If we had more spine bones, we would just drop them here, and we would get the proper rotation for all of these bones when we're doing character animation. The last thing we need to think about in our case is the neck. So we have got 2 bones for the neck. So right now there's nothing in there. So we need to provide a few bones. So first bone for the neck here, and second bone for the neck. And now we've got a complete definition of our character. So the base here is what is required, and the rest is refinement based on all of the bones that we, refinement for the bones that we have brought in inside of Motion Builder. Right now is a good time to say the work that we've done. We're going to extract a naming template, and we're going to say OK to that. And when we extract a naming template like this, we can save it. So I'm going to go here and say File, Save, or I can just grab this character definition and right-click and say, just select it. You don't have any branches. I can go here and say File, Save Selection, and I'm going to call that cat2rig. So that's a different file name. So cat2rig template. Save that, and we don't need to export everything. All we need to do is to export the character. So this is the line here, and the rest you can turn it off. So what you're saving is just this character definition with the templates. I'm going to go back here and turn off all of this, and I don't want to export any animation, so save that. So now what we have is a naming template that we can reuse if we are bringing characters with exactly the same naming convention, and that's why the naming convention will be super important when you do cat to Motion Builder. So if I go here and say File, New, don't save, I'm going to lower this here, go back into my perspective view, and I'll do exactly the same process in a lot less time. I'll go here and say File, Merge. I'll bring in my cat2rig, just bring that in, merge that in, so we got our rig here. And then I'm going to go here and say File, Merge, and I'll bring in the cat2rig template, and we're going to bring everything. We don't care, we only save the character itself. If I go into the characters here, you'll see that we've got cat character. If I double click, you see that, I'm just going to maximize it. There's no bones here, but we have a naming template. So the naming template will allow us to just go to the the schematic view and grab everything that we see here, Alt, and just drag it anywhere onto the character definition, and you'll see that automatically, because we had a naming template, All of the bones have been provided correctly. All of the reference, the spine, the auxiliary bone, everything has been mapped correctly. So that you don't have to do it again and again. Once you've got a structure that you like, you can reuse this naming convention. And it's just a name mapping, which means that if you've got a character with a different size, or that is a bit different, or that doesn't have exactly the same pose, T-pose, it's not a problem. It's just a naming convention. So it's a good way to save time by saving those naming template. So once the naming template is done, we can the character is understood. So the bones are structured and everything. So we can go and say, I'm ready to characterize this. So turn that on. This is a biped, so yes, that's fine. And we've got our rig, and now you see in character control here, we've got all of the tools that we can use for Motion Builder. If I want to create a control rig for it, I'm just going to go here, say create, full body IK, FKIK, and now what we got is if I just go and say make the controller active and go in move mode, grab the hand, you'll see that our bone structure has been animated by the control rig, because if I go into the input, this is the, oops, I'm just going to move that back in here. Input, that's the control rig input. Since we want to bring in motion capture data to this character, what I'll do is I'll go into the tutorials again, and I'll grab the, there's one here called walk around. So I'm just going to go here and say merge. I'm going to grab take one. And what we'll see somewhere in the file, we've got another character, and that character is just walking around. So that character, I'm going to feed it as my input for my other character. Again, it's called Mia. And now we're going to have our character being animated correctly. The retargeting is done all for us. We don't have to worry about it. So we have our animation. We want to bring it back to 3ds Max. I'm going to go here and say edit, plot the character. We need to plot to the skeleton, because right now we're feeding, it's kind of wiring everything to the skeleton, but the skeleton doesn't hold any animation. So we want to bake this into the skeleton so that we can send it back to 3ds Max. So bake that, plot that. So now the bones have their animation. I can go here in file, save character animation, and I'm going to call that animated, cat2 rig animated, save that. And we're just going to grab take one, save this, and now it's been saved as an FBX file, so we can go to 3ds Max and load it onto our cat rig. But you'll see that in the 3ds Max, the process will be a little bit different. So we have a cat rig, and now we need to bring in the FBX data animation onto it, but it's not like biped where you update the scene element, because we've got meta controllers in cat that doesn't allow you to do that. But you'll see the process is not too complicated. I'll go here and say file import, and I'll just import the what we've just exported, cat2 rig animated. Open that up. Instead of updating the scene element like we did for biped, we're going to go here and say add to scene. So it's going to bring the bones and the animation inside of 3ds Max. We're going to turn on animation. And also here in the bones creation, you'll see that we have the ability to say convert as dummy or leave as bones. So it's just a preference. The result will be the same in Max, but what we want to do, in my case here, I'm just going to convert as dummy because I think they're easier to select in the viewport, but again, it's my preference. I'm just going to say OK, and it's going to bring in the animation we just did in Motion Builder, so I can play that back. So our goal now is to use the capture animation tool of cat to go and grab the animation from this guy here. So in order to do that, I'll grab the, I'll just deselect everything. I'll go in animation cat and say capture animation. I'll just open that up, and you'll see that there's a tool here called capture animation, and we need to provide a source object and a target rig. So the target rig will be the cat rig. It's going to bring all the bones here, and the source object will be, I'm just going to grab the pelvis here, and it brings all of the bones inside of the mapping tool. So the source node, the target node. Now we need to define which goes where. So I'll grab the pelvis and I'll say pelvis will be there. So you see that the pelvis is going there. It's kind of weird when you're doing it, but you'll see that it's working pretty well. The platform, I'm just going to use the left foot. I'm just say this is going to be the defined for the platform. The thigh, the calf, and the foot. I'm going to grab all of the three here. Just drag them all the three at once, and they're going to be one after the other. The right platform, I'm going to grab the right foot, to drag it here, and then the thigh, the calf, and the foot. We're just going to drag that here so that the three are mapped together. For the spine, I'm not going to do it right away because I'm not allowed to do the spine, and I'll tell you why in a few seconds. We're going to come back to it a bit later. So I'm going to go back here to the rib cage. I'm going to drop in the rib cage, the collarbone up to the palm. I'm going to drag that here for the left arm. Same thing for the right arm. I'm going to drag these bones here and drag them there. And the neck, I'm not going to do it. It's a spine type of limb, so I'm not going to do that. And then I'm going to grab in the head here. So you see that the mapping is pretty good, but the spine and the neck are not done. And the reason is that CAT by default uses procedural animation for the spine and the neck and anything that's based on a spine limb. So what we want to do is we want to make that for the capture time, we want that to be keyframeable and not procedural. But since I don't want to redo all of this, what I'll do is I'll save my mapping and I'll call that cat2 map, because as you saw I practiced this before, so I'm going to say cat2 map, and I'm just going to close down the capture animation and go back to the motion here. If you take a look at what's happening now in the cat, it created a layer called cat pelvis mapping. So basically it's creating the map and the controls to be able to follow that animation here, but it didn't capture the animation yet. It just connected everything to the bones. I don't want that anymore, so I'm just going to trash it. And I'm going to turn off the animation mode. And as it is selected, I'm going to go to the modify panel and I'm going to grab the spine, and you see that the spine is set to procedural. And like I said, to capture animation from Motion Builder for all of the spine bone, we need to be in keyframe. Otherwise, the procedural will just take the animation from the rib cage and the pelvis and will calculate the interpolation automatically. If you want to bring animation from Motion Builder and map it to the spine, you need to be in keyframe mode. It's going to give you a warning. Yes, that's fine. Then I can go back to the motion panel, turn on animation mode, go back to my available layer, animation, capture animation. I don't want to do the whole thing again, so I'm going to grab the source here to be the pelvis of this guy, and then I'm going to say load the mapping that we've done, so cat to map, and you'll see that it's going to update correctly. The spine is not done, but now we have the right to do it, so I'm just going to drag in spine 1 to 4. It's going to map it correctly, and do the same thing for the neck. If you try to do this, then the neck and the you're going to get, oops, oh, the neck, I forgot to do it. So as you can see, the mapping is not working because the neck, I didn't set it up to FK. So it's going to give you an error. I'm going to save what I've done so far, cap to map, save that, and update it. It's my mistake, I'm sorry, but it's going to give me a chance to go back to my rig and grab the neck and see keyframe. Yes, that's what I want. And then go back to my available layer and say animation cat, capture animation, grab the source, it's going to be here. I'm going to load the mapping that we've done, and then to that I'm going to add the neck in the end, grab the neck 1 and 2, just drag it in here, and we're going to say we're good with that. So when I say look what's happening here in the layer manager, we've got a layer that contains the mapping. If I say capture animation, it's going to create a new animation layer on which we've got the animation itself. So the mapping is still there. So we've got this animation here. I can call that FBX anim 1, because if I turn that off, the mapping is still there. So it's still connected to the bone. So if I bring in another animation onto this FBX and I just say update scene element, this FBX bone structure will be updated with the new animation. And because that mapping is still alive, I can go back and say capture animation, and capture animation. Right now, I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to bring back the animation here, and I'm just going to trash or just delete the mapping. And we've got our FBX animation 1. The last thing I want to talk about in this workflow is that the character is where it was placed in Motion Builder, but I would like this this animation to happen from the center of the world. So when you select an absolute animation layer, you see that there's a move icon there. So I'm just going to turn it on, and you'll see that we have a little structure here, kind of a ghost drawing on top of our character. If I grab this this helper here, this allows me to move the character inside of the scene and place it where I would like it to be. So what I'll do is I'll just bring it at 0, 0, and I'll also go into rotation mode, and I'll say in Z 180 degrees, so it's pointing forward. And when it's done, I just grab a cat bone again and turn off this layer transformation, and now everything has been offset so that it starts from there. If I don't want to have the FBX structure anymore in the scene, I can select it and I'm just going to grab the root here, which is at the center of the world, and just delete that. We don't need it anymore because all the motion has been captured onto the cat rig, and it's now part of the cat animation system. So if I go to the layer here, FBX animation is what we brought back from Motion Builder. So that's a workflow that needs a little bit more attention than the biped, but it's very powerful as well. So we can bring in animation and put them on your cat rig and do motion capture to put that on cat in the cat layer system.